Hello, this is Justin Sotelo again, and in this video I will be discussing HDR processing. Okay, so the process of actually merging our HDR files in Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw or Photoshop, whatever it happens to be. In the previous video I discussed what HDR was, what the goals of HDR are, and how we actually capture those image files in camera. Okay, so we've done that. We've been out. We've taken our shots. We've taken a series of shots, and I have now uploaded those files onto my computer, and have more specifically brought them into my Lightroom catalog here. And to keep this simple, I'm just going to work with 3 images. Okay, so the first image represents my first shot. So again, I'm on a tripod, and just keeping things level, still, that sort of thing. So my first shot was my camera metering for the scene and determining what it thought was a correct exposure. However, we do have this bright area in the sky that we're going to have to address. But let's say this first shot was shot at 1/60th of a second. So then with my second shot, I wanted it to be underexposed by 2 stops. Okay, so I sped up my shutter speed by 2 stops, basically. So if this base shot was at 1/60th of a second, I jumped to 1/250th of a second. Okay, so 2 stops faster. And then for this last shot, I shot it 2 stops overexposed. Okay, so again, if this first shot was taken at 1/60th of a second, the second shot was taken at 1/15th of a second. Okay, so 3 images here. Number 1, number 2 is 2 stops underexposed. Number 3 is 2 stops overexposed. Okay, so that's my series. So what I'm going to do is select the first one. I'm going to hit Shift and then click on the last image so that all 3 are selected. I'm going to hit right click or Control and then go to Photo Merge. I'm going to select HDR. Then I'll get this preview window. It's telling me that it's creating an HDR preview. And you see a few things here. A couple of boxes here. Auto Align helps Lightroom align your individual images. Although these were all taken on a tripod, and in theory they should be aligned, as I mentioned previously, you could actually take your images handheld, and this feature here should do a pretty good job of aligning the images. Okay, but I think just to be safe, we should always use a tripod so that all images will be aligned just out of the gate. Secondly, we have this auto settings box or feature here. You can uncheck that and see what it looks like without the settings applied. But this is Lightroom kind of assessing your 3 individual images and applying what it thinks are some good adjustments or edits to the HDR file. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that checked. Next, we see this deghost amount section here. Okay, and what this is intended for is to address any motion that could be happening in your images. So if you had maybe people walking through your scene, or if it was a windy day and maybe trees are moving or some of the bushes are moving, that sort of thing, you can try to address some of that motion by applying a different amount of deghosting here. Okay, because I didn't have any motion within my scene, I'm just going to leave this set at none, and I'm just going to go ahead and merge the 3 files. See up here in the progress bar that Lightroom is creating my HDR image, and here it is right here. So it appears as a DNG file, which is still a raw file. DNG stands for digital negative, but now I can compare my 3 base images. So this was image 1, this was underexposed, overexposed, and then this is the merged final photo, okay, of the 3 images combined. Okay, so with this image selected, I'm going to go into my develop module here by hitting keyboard shortcut D. And if I look at my basic panel, I can see what changes Lightroom applied. Okay, so it made a slight adjustment to the contrast. It really brought the highlights down to -90, bumped up the shadows a bit, brought up the whites, brought the blacks down, and then applied a little bit of vibrance and saturation. Okay, so I'm happy with that, but I think I want to do a little more editing to this image. I am going to maybe bring the exposure down, the overall exposure, just a little bit. I might bring the shadows up just a tad, just to bring a little more detail in this foreground. I still want to address the sky because I'm not getting as much detail in this sky as I would like to. Before I do that, though, I am going to apply a little more vibrance just to give the final image a little more color. And then under the color mixer panel, specifically the luminance tab, I'm going to bring my blues down just to kind of darken them a little bit more. And then lastly, I do want to address this upper left-hand corner, which I think is overexposed. And I'm going to do that by using a linear gradient. So keyboard shortcut M. And I'm just going to start here in the top left-hand corner, kind of drag that down. I'm going to apply this mask here, and I'm just going to bring the exposure down in that upper left-hand corner. Okay, I could go further and do additional adjustments if I wanted to, but I'm somewhat happy with this, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And there we go. So we started off with our 3 base images and we merged them to create our final HDR photo, which is a DNG file. And that's the process in Lightroom. Okay, now I'm going to jump over to Bridge and show you basically the same process, and you're going to see that it's very similar. Okay, so Bridge, I'm going to start with Bridge, but then take the images over into Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, so I'm viewing my 3 base images in this folder. Okay, again, my original shot, my underexposed shot, and my overexposed shot. I'm just going to hit Shift and click on the last image here. Make sure all 3 are selected. They all 3 have a blue box around them. I'm going to right click or hit Control click and open in Camera Raw. It brings all 3 images into Camera Raw. I see them all 3 here in the film strip. Okay, again, this first image is selected. Oops. Go back to that and hit Shift click. Make sure all 3 are selected. And again, I'm going to hit Control click, merge to HDR. And like we saw in Lightroom, we're going to get this HDR merge preview, and we see the same options here. This align images feature. So again, if we happen to have taken our series of images handheld, this feature will help align all the images in our series. You can apply just some base settings, have Camera Raw apply some base settings. You can see it without the settings, you can see it with. I'm just going to keep those applied. I'm not going to apply any deghosting because there was essentially no movement in my scene, so I'm going to leave that off and then go ahead and hit merge. I'm not going to name this. I'm just going to go with the default name and go ahead and hit save. Okay, and now in our film strip here at the bottom, again, we see our original image, our underexposed image, our overexposed image, and then our combined HDR image file. Okay, and like I did in Lightroom, I'm going to make some additional adjustments on top of what Camera Raw did. So I'm going to, again, bring the exposure down, the overall exposure a little bit. I'm going to bump up my shadows a little bit. Under color, I'm going to bump up the vibrance just a tad, maybe bring the saturation up a little bit. Under the color mixer panel, again, I want to darken that sky a little bit more. So I'm going to bring my blue slider down under the luminance tab, just to make it a little darker. And then again, I want to address this corner, this upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to go to the masking tool here. I'm going to grab the linear gradient, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just apply a mask here in the upper left-hand corner, and then bring the exposure down in that area just to kind of balance everything out. Okay, so that's HDR processing in Camera Raw. You see that it's very similar to the process in Lightroom. Once I'm done with my edits, I would go ahead and save my file by hitting this icon here in the upper right-hand corner. I would name it, save it to a folder of my choice. Okay, so HDR processing in Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. Again, thank you for listening to this video.